So what we decided to do, I've interviewed a lot of people. I might have a few questions for you too, though, so if you're okay with it, but mine are easy.
It's okay.
So President Weingarten, as she's formerly known, or Randi Weingarten, or my friend Randi now, you go all over the country and all over the world. You're an extraordinary person, and I'm glad we're going to have this conversation.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. And I'm glad we're having it here at the Teacher Hall of Fame. So, you know, I of course, had a question about the hairbrush story, but I'm Xing that question out now.
Okay.
Since, but I do actually want to ask you a couple of questions about just how you thought about writing the book, because with virtually every interview, even the one with Beverly Cleary, and that was, and I'd love you to tell the story about your own persistence in getting that interview. But that's my second question. My first question is, you know, whether it was with Catherine Switzer, or the man who carved the world's smallest wooden rooster.
Yeah, he's in the Guinness. Chris Lubkeman. Yeah.
You ask every single one of them, including the Harvard president, basically how they would define themselves. And I'm wondering whether in your interviews with them, you started, like in the one with Beverly, clearly you could see the questions you asked and what you said. But I was wondering, what was your thought process in thinking about that as you were asking them to define themselves first and foremost? Like what were you thinking? Like, so take us behind the curtain a little bit.
Okay. So what I was thinking is we don't get a chance to really meet each other. This is a moment in time. Our paths cross very fast. I think that there's a lot of value in every human being that walks this earth. And a lot of people pass us day after day. A lot of children come in my classroom. A lot of teachers pass me in the hall, my own colleagues. And we don't take the time to really ask, who are you? Who really are you? How do you define yourself? You know, I could very easily put a label on myself: teacher, dad, husband. But is that everything? Is that the full package? I could put a label on you. I could say activist. I could say AFT president. I could say educator and attorney. And those things, I think, are those surface level things. Oftentimes,
as opposed to grandmother who just spent hours on Saturday blowing up float for my grandkids.
That's awesome. And,
exactly right.
That's exactly it. We need to, if we're going to build hope and purpose in our world, we need to get to know each other. We need to listen to each other and hear about those things getting blown up for grandkids and all those things. And our time seems like it grows shorter and shorter with every year. It's not that time's moving faster, but the world is very fast-paced. We have a technology challenge right now too. You know, before we started today, here we are. Who would have ever guessed 20 years ago that you would get off a plane, go somewhere, sit down at a table in a place you've never been, and be on ABC News remotely?
Right.
It's amazing. So we live in this extremely fast-paced world. How in a fast-paced world can we take the time to pull back, like you said, pull back the sheet a little bit and see behind the scenes what really drives each person? Because I think what drives each person is different for everyone. We are all individuals, and we all, if we're going to have a purposeful world, if we're going to have joy in our world, we have to get to know each other. We have to take the time to get to know each other. It has been business, business, business for too many years, and we've lost track of the human sense of building personal relationships. Yep. That's why it was so important for me, even in the Hall of Fame at the beginning, for us to even know at least who we are. We were a bunch of strangers when we first walked in there, and it was awkward. But even just saying our names and how we're all kind of connected in this moment is what builds meaning. That's why I asked that question. So how would you define yourself?
How would I define myself?
Yes, I'd love to hear it.
I would define myself as someone who is striving every day to make a difference in the world. And that I am really, 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 really grateful that I have the opportunity to do that. And as I get older and older, I have much more gratitude than when I was younger. I'm really grateful for every day that I have. I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for everything that I've had the opportunity to do. And so I actually define myself these days as someone who serves to try to make a difference in the lives of others. And for that, I am really, really, really grateful.
That's wonderful.
It's pretty awesome to be able to be at the intersection of helping kids and helping the adults that make a difference in the lives of kids. I mean, how many people get to do that in their adult life? And so, as opposed to thinking, in some ways, I think like your dad, as opposed to thinking about the glass as half full, I think about it as full, and how do we actually create a better life? So that's how I think about myself.
That's why I love you as a leader. It's great.
You have to know that I don't often respond to anything that is in my public social media anymore, but I do respond to direct messages. And I got a direct message from Christopher, how many months ago was it?
4 or 5 months ago.
Saying, I have a really odd request for you. What do you think about this? But in some ways, and I do think you're right about this in terms of technology, and we just have to figure out how to use it in a better way than it's being used right now. But technology is the great equalizer. It does democratize. It also polarizes. But that is actually how we had that first conversation and how I'm here today. So I have another question for you.
Great.
Which is, and I did want to get back to, so you decided that you were going to find a way to interview Beverly Cleary.
Yeah.
For those who have not read the book yet, why don't you go through how you got the interview?
Oh. Well, I have another son, Corey. Corey taught me something called Facebook Messenger. That's how I got Peter Melman, actually. Peter Melman is the co-producer of Seinfeld. I just messaged him and said, hey, I'm working on this just like I did with you, and said, would you be interested? Sure, here's my number. And before you know it, I think sincerity is why. The interview with Beverly Cleary, though, it takes a process to get to somebody that has some notoriety to them. And Beverly Cleary is amongst the tops of the tops for childhood literature. And so I called a lady, and I simply just looked online, what's Beverly Cleary's phone number in Carmel, California? And darn it, Google knew the answer. So I called the number, figuring it's going to be some public, whatever, press person. And this very British-sounding lady comes on, and she thought I was being kind of, foolish with her and everything. And she said, a lot of people call me about this Cleary lady. Who is she? And I said, you don't know who Beverly Cleary is? And she did not like that. And so I explained it to her, and she said, well, you sound like a nice person. I did some research. So I can picture this lady going around town looking for, who this Beverly Cleary is. And she says, I think she's at this home in Carmel, California. Here's the phone number. Okay. figuring I'll just call the nursing home, I'll talk to the people there and arrange a time to speak if she's willing. Okay. Unfortunately, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was going to be one of those chapters, and so is Jimmy Carter. But health takes its toll. Beverly Cleary was 104, and I was calling her on the telephone. I think when she grew up, there wasn't many telephones around. I mean, she's seen an entire century. Called the nursing home, said, my name is Christopher Albrecht, I'm doing this thing, may I speak to Mrs. Cleary, please? And they said, hold on, she's eating lunch. I'll get her in about 2 minutes. I didn't have my questions ready. So now, within 2 minutes, I'm looking back at previous interviews, scribbling down questions as fast as I possibly can, and all of a sudden I hear this beautiful voice, hello, and that's how our conversation started. And we talked on the phone for a half an hour. Now, what's amazing about the Beverly Cleary interview, interviewing someone that's 104 over the telephone during a pandemic is really not that easy, because there's moments of silence that go for roughly 20, 30 seconds. There were moments. And I didn't know if she fell asleep on me, which even at 49 years old, sometimes I go to sleep during things. And so I didn't know how she was, what was going on. And there were some questions she didn't want to answer, but the beauty of Beverly Cleary is she had 104 years to do what I would call boiling down the sauce. I grew up with an Italian grandmother that boiled the sauce down for days, and she boiled it down to very, very few words. What I didn't realize till my son let me borrow his Bose headphones that are these really easy, good headphones that you can hear sound in, is she was giggling during all those silence moments. How do you get to 104 years old? Laughter, joy. You want to grow old? Take care of your body, eat right, exercise, but most important, enjoy your life.
Yep.
And that's what Beverly Cleary taught me right there. It's time that we stop going after achievements and start going after what fulfills us. What is our purpose? That's what Beverly Cleary taught me. Amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm so thankful I got to talk to her. It was a gift from God,
as
far
was
as I'm
really
concerned.
amazing.
Yes.
So we've talked a lot tonight, and you've talked a lot tonight about hope and about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But we have talked a lot tonight about service.
Yes.
So tell us how you see that triad together. How do you see that triangle?
Hope, purpose,
And
service. Seamless. Service is a way of life. Our purpose is a way of life. Being hopeful that tomorrow is going to be better than today is a way of life. So I would respond to that by saying, how are we teaching our kids in our classrooms? Mm-hmm. It's very important that we're taking the time each day to recognize purpose. And what I would say to that is, if a child shows an interest in something or is talented at something, and it's outside the realm of reading, writing, and math, which we test ad nauseum at times, let them go after their passions and interests as long as they're safe, productive, and you know it's going to provide them with a good future. Guide our kids. We're not here to cram education down kids' throats. What we're here to do is teach kids the way. So to teach them that tomorrow is going to be better than today. Even if today was a great day. Today has been a great day. I've had a wonderful day. I'm hopeful tomorrow is going to be even better, and I'm getting a chance to serve here in Emporia. Purpose. We need to listen to our kids. We do so much thinking about curriculum, but how much time do we really think about the way we instruct, even the words that we choose to use when talking to a child or an adolescent, or even an adult in our building? We need to take the time to critically look at, are we giving them a chance to fulfill their purpose? Service-mindedness. To be a service-minded student, I have to be a service-minded role model. And if I'm not, I'm a failure as a teacher. Teachers have to be role models for their students, or they're not going to be successful. There is obligation with our profession. Whether we like it or not, we are obligated to be role models, citizens, decent people. And part of that comes with the way we spend our own free time serving our community. I see it as all one mindset.
It's interesting, you know, the AFT motto from the beginning was educating for democracy and democracy in education.
It's beautiful.
And it is that same kind of sense of the service to create the voice and the agency.
It's beautiful. You know, we don't teach the Constitution. A lot of kids don't understand nowadays. They don't understand what the Constitution or laws of these countries do for them.
Yes.
You know, the government's supposed to work for the people. We're not supposed to be working for the government. We're supposed to be serving our society. And when I look at what we kind of have happening right now, I think what we need to do is go back to those fundamental roots and teach people, you know, to communicate with each other. At the earliest ages, at 4th grade, would I go straight into the laws of the Constitution? No. That would be like teaching any very tough topics. You're an attorney. Any of the challenging topics you would have learned in law school to a high schooler. We need to teach at the youngest levels communication, the ability to get along with each other, not just speaking, but listening and digesting information. And that takes patience. I'm thinking of this year, we did a lot with community circles because kids had a lot going on in their lives and needed to talk about it, and other kids needed to learn how to listen to them too. That's how we became a tighter community this year and served each other. Service-mindedness is about this. Somebody drops something, you pick it up for them. Somebody, you know, it's not about a huge act of philanthropy. It might be as simple as smiling at somebody as they're walking by you. That's living a life of service. It's kindness.
It's great. It's a really different way of thinking about education. Mm-hmm. Hope, purpose, service is really different than education reductionism to math and English scores.
Yes, we've become very curriculum driven,
right?
But the affect of a human being drives the curriculum. So I'll give you a curricular way that I look at things in the classroom. We have something called Bloom's taxonomy. A lot of educators would know Bloom's taxonomy. At the top's create, right? Well, if we've gotten away from that, what's happened is we've stopped being creative in the classroom and we've gone to that analyze, apply, and kind of stop there. And we also don't have a foundation in knowledge. Spelling and math facts, handwriting. Let's not even go to handwriting right now. So those things. So I would call for an action over the next couple of years in education. I would like to see us go to creativity and also back to those knowledge bases. The middle will come along just fine. But what I think will happen is this. I keep hearing the words childhood trauma. That doesn't make any sense to me. How can a child, what child deserves trauma or anxiety, childhood anxiety? That doesn't make sense to me. But way we can get past that, we can't necessarily control the houses that these children, these homes they come from. But what we can do is we can take a look at the top of that pyramid, creativity, and let that child explore while they're at school. And that in turn will give them a means to be more service-minded, more hopeful, more purposeful. They need to explore themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was at a seminar a few weeks ago in Aspen, of all places.
Oh.
And I said, if you remember only one thing that I'm saying right now, just remember these two terms, community schools and project-based instruction. Mm-hmm. Like, instead of thinking about everything else, if we wrap services around schools, and have the kind of community circles, have open schools up so that we are feeding kids and their families, not just kids breakfast and lunch, but have a family dinner every once in a while. Have a family movie night every once in a while. Try to think about what our families need in terms of how we get out of this trauma that we have collectively had. And then think about, as you just said, Chris, the notion of a student waking up every morning and saying, I want to go to school because of that.
Yeah.
I want to do this because of that. I want to be there because of that. Whether it's soccer or whether it's my kids who debated the We the People competition and the Bill of Rights, but this whole notion of what is the that? And if we can have school around the that so that kids, their creativity is sparked, their learning is sparked, both in teams as well as individually, that's what you're saying. And so it's a matter also of the communication in terms of how do we convince the powers that be that that becomes more important to do than the this. And so are you telling us that we have to leave?
I am.
Okay, so let me ask the last question then, which is this. You end each of your interviews by asking each one of your interviewees if they had a favorite teacher.
That was my first book. My first book was that question.
So, who is your favorite teacher?
I would answer that by asking you in school, well, we'll have a conversation tonight about who your favorite teacher is, I guess, with time. My favorite teacher, if you were to say in a public school setting, I think everybody deserves to have two parents that love them, and their favorite teacher should start in the home with the parents. And I was fortunate to have two great parents. So my favorite teachers would be my parents. But if we were to talk about schools, Mr. Jim Karg. Mr. Karg was my 5th grade teacher and my junior varsity baseball coach. And Mr. Karg, he was tough. He was not your typical teacher. He had 2 posters in the room, one of Jimmy Superfly Snuka going off of the top rope, and another one of this person that says, "Do not smoke." He was nuts and bolts. He was straightforward. And he took me to baseball practices with him when I was in 5th grade, when he knew that I would enjoy that, to work with his high school kids. When I caught pneumonia, Dad, you'll remember this. When I caught pneumonia, I was out for 3 weeks in Mr. Karg's class, and he came to my house and sat with me to keep me caught up. Years later, he was at my wedding. I talked to him 2 days ago on the telephone about something. The reason he's my favorite teacher is I had a great school year, but more importantly, he became my friend over time and took an interest in me. I've had a lot of teachers take interest in me, but every once in a while you have one where you just, like for me, Mike, Jacob, there's a lot of, you just can't let go because they're your family now.
Yep.
And Mr. Karg, I consider him part of my family now. He taught for 43 years in public education, and I believe he was mortified the day he stopped. He did not want to stop. So, Mr. Karg.
Fantastic.
Yeah, yes. Now, listen to this. When Randi came here, ABC News she was talking to ABC News. Now, MSNBC needs her services too. We're wedged in between that. But does she seem to not? What's beautiful about this is you're letting me have this moment with you. And I'm so grateful for that, Randi, because you're letting basically a whole viewer audience right now wait for just me, and I'm so thankful. So it is pure joy having you here. This was meant to be.
So let me just end by saying, this is, you and I both have a lot of agency. Mm-hmm. On some levels, we both have a lot of power.
I think you have more than I do.
No.
I don't even have power in my house sometimes.
In a different way. I'm at dinner, I'm going to ask your wife that question. But this is my point in saying it. We've just had this amazing afternoon. You're going to have an amazing day tomorrow. This is a place that you love. It's a place that has honored you as a Teacher of the Year and in the Teachers Hall of Fame. But I think what we've also done today by having these moments together is that we are saying to so many teachers around the country, this is who you are. Mm-hmm. you're not invisible to us. You're not invisible to Christopher. I heard that all day long. You're not invisible to me. You're not invisible to the people who started the Hall of Fame. And this is a year that people have gone above and beyond in so many different ways, learning, and you said this as you were talking in the book and as you were talking about your father, the technology, the different platforms, the remote, the hybrid, the simultaneous, the in school, the not in school, the testing, the, you know, antigen tests, the this, the that. I mean, think about all that we've been through and our families have been through and our communities have been through. And in part and parcel of why I also wanted to do this was not only to honor you, but to also say to everyone who sometimes feels so faceless, like you didn't know if I was going to answer you or not. You didn't know if the guy from Seinfeld was going to answer you or not. But you are a teacher, and you teach all of us. And so many of our members and so many teachers around the United States and the world do the same thing. And I wanted to do this tonight, not only to honor you, but to honor all of them. So thank you for letting me do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll talk again.
Good, good. Okay.
Okay, folks, I'm going to go over, she's going to go on national television, and I'm